allow a minute of silent prayer or meditation. Just 1 minute. Thank you. In fact, it's because we are here. So let me declare the meeting officially open and welcome our guests, despite the fact that we are in their venue. Welcome to the meeting of the Portfolio Committee for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Always, because there might be new people, we'll always have to introduce ourselves and make sure that we have a sense as to who is in the meeting. I'm Fikile Klasa, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. So I'll start from my left. Honorable Speaker.
Good morning, Chair, good morning, colleagues, and good morning to all the representatives from the CRL. I'm Eleanor Spies, and I'm a member of this committee.
Good morning, the Chair, the Deputy, the CEO, and Mr. Cornelius Smuts of the CRL. I am Nikaya Mpumza, the Chair of the Stakeholder Engagement of the Churches.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, commissioners. I'm the Chair of nothing.
Good day, everybody. I'm Michael Groenewald. I'm a member of this committee.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Kolani Msimango. I'm the member of the committee. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dikele Didireko. I'm a member of this committee.
Other two members is Honorable Kabanchaba, who is sitting down with a coffee, and Honorable Hadebe, with an H, or Hadebe with an H, is also a member of the committee. So I'm trying to facilitate this. I would allow the Chairperson of the board, CRL, CRL Rights Commission. CRL Rights Commission, the Chairperson, to help us know who is, what is it? It's cultural rights, linguistic. Okay. Chairperson, can I allow you?
Thank you, honorable members. First, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge and welcome you, at least in our small domain, the CRL Commission's offices. We occupy only this wing, the ground floor, not the top structure. Honorable members, I have with me here, next to me, it's Commissioner Mamuhapi Petu. She is the Deputy Chairperson. And then next to her is Mr. Mafaza, Edward Mafaza, who is our CEO. And next to him is Mr. Smarts, our CFO. And we are really delighted that you've taken time to visit us. And we are very privileged to have you because it's like the people have come. Your presence, it's a clear indication the people are here. From the perspective of the CRL, we are here to pursue the mandate, both as enshrined in the Constitution as well as the Act. I have shortly given a synopsis of what we are doing in my foreword, but there I've captured some of the salient points which I just want to make one or two remarks. One is that the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has had constraining effect on the work of the Commission, especially with regard to how the Commission ought to be doing its work because of the lockdown, and of course also in terms of its finances. The second challenge has been and continue to be the abuses that are prevalent in cultural, religious communities. Abuse of men, of women, children and girls. And this also has a deeming effect on the way in which we do work in the Commission. And thirdly, it is the issue of initiation. Initiation schools in our country. From time to time, when we have the initiation system, we are really jittery because of the death tolls that are actually taking place there. So as a result of that, we think it is important that before the end of this month, we have a national endeavor to try and find ways in which we can discern common solution, lasting solution to this problem, because it undermines and at the same time it of course brings into disrepute the noble culture of initiation in our country. So it is important not just to stand by and see young people go to waste and die in this very important cultural environment. Of course, we have had the 5-year strategic plan with 5 pillars underpinned by cooperative governance, sound financial management, issues of structure, investigation, conflict resolutions, public engagement that is necessary in order to foster better understanding, conscientization of our society, to understand our homogeneity and the need to live together side by side as a community or society united in our diversity. So with these few words, I just want to say thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. To our guests, why we are here is because you, through the Minister, tabled your annual reports and annual financial statements and everything in relation to what the Public Finance Management Act instructs. So we are here on that basis, following up on some of the issues that after interacting with the Auditor General's report, we took notes, and so generally we are here to listen to you making your presentation in relation to this financial year 2021-22. And we have had briefing by the Auditor General. You might have as well been taken through. So we have been taking notes, but we want to hear from you. So this becomes the opportunity to allow CRL to make a presentation to the committee. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, honorable members and colleagues. I want to also join our Chairperson in sharing the same sentiments that we feel good that Parliament has descended to the communities. And we are of the view that one day you will also go with us to the real local communities. Chairperson, I am going to take you through the presentation this morning. And our presentation, in terms of the outline, the first item 1 to 6, they are most probably the standard items that we usually would put for the presentations. And because we have engaged with you more than 2 times now, I'm sure many of the members are aware of some of those. That covers our vision, our values, and of course from 7 going to 11, it will then talk to the specifics of the annual report. Let us start with the first slide, Chair, wherein we indicate the outcome of the audit outcome of the year 2021-2022. We are pleased, Chair, that the Commission is on track in terms of clean audits, and I'm sure to the delighted of some of the members 2-3 years back, they were saying that you are the only one now left, and we kept on saying that we've been there. The problem is that some of the things that they picked up at the last moment disqualified us. But we are on track now. In terms of our history, this is the 3rd clean audit that we have received from 2016 since the establishment of the Commission. So we are hoping to keep this record, Chair, going forward. Now, the standard slide that comes again, Chair, is just to give the outline of the outcomes and the programs, how we are arranged as a Commission, that we still in the same year, in the year under review, we're still operating in terms of 5 programs: administration, legal services and conflict resolution, public engagement and education, and research and policy development, as well as communications. And if we look below them as we distributed the presentations, the outcomes for each, especially for 1, is to make sure that we have good corporate governance, so that we maintain the clean audit. And then with the second one is to strengthen conflict resolution and legislative reviews, to promote and protect cultural, religious and linguistic rights of communities, while the outcome number 3 for program 3 is effective, structural and informed communities on cultural, religious and linguistic rights of communities. And then we develop evidence-based policies, so that we inform evidence-based policies to sustain the resuscitation of diminishing and diminished community heritages. Of course, we do that with the intensification of communications and marketing. the reason why we are highlighting this, Chair, is because as a commission, we are striving to try and create an enabled environment for cultural, religious, and linguistic communities in the country, so that there is what is called coexistence and social cohesion, because we can only measure our performance when we see that there's tolerance in our communities, there's social cohesion, there's humanity, and we are living the vision of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The next slide, Chair, is just in showing the outcomes and the outcome indicators as I've highlighted them in terms of how they are attached. I did summarize them, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But our vision is well known that we trying to create a mutual respect amongst the diverse cultural, religious, and linguistic communities to foster, in terms of our mission, to foster rights of communities to freely observe and practice their culture, religion, and languages. So the freedom of all when it comes to those issues. So then we have our values that are for internal use and help us to achieve those. So when I come to a slide that talks about progress towards the achievement of institutional impacts and outcomes, we will then see, Chair, that the outcome one, the indicators are those that I was talking to, unqualified audit opinion and improved oversight, and we're saying we are going to get clean audit. So in actual fact, I've summarized some of this at the introductions there, but it's just giving a baseline in terms of what has happened before and where in the next 5 years we would want to see each indicator and its outcome achieving. We want to have zero fruitless, irregular, and wasteful expenditure on outcome number one, and we want to make sure in terms of outcome number two that we handle all the complaints that we get from the communities, and we are also proactive in terms of the bills that are in Parliament to make sure that they are focused to and they are sensitive to issues of culture, religion, and language. Of course, we do that with engagements in communities, and we are saying that in the next 5 years, since we have started in 2019, we aim to have 250 engagements and educational programs in communities, while we produce about 20 research reports, so that our work is much more, acknowledged also by other communities. So that slide is just a summary of that. But if I come to 2021-2022 annual targets per program, if we look at program one, our target, Chair, was about 8 targets that we wanted to achieve. And in those 8, we managed to achieve 6. We did not achieve the 2, and we will explain why the other 2 were not achieved. So that program in the financial year, in the year under review, stands at 75% in terms of achievement. Then program 2, which is legal services and conflict resolution, targets were about 5, and we managed to achieve 3, and 2 were not, and so 60% is where the department stands for. So if we can recall, Chair, in the previous financial year, this department was standing on 32%. So there's a great improvement from our side that we have moved from 32% to 60%. And we will also still give information in terms of which areas were not achieved and what could be the reasons. Then the other programs, 3, 4, and 5, they managed to achieve 100%, all of them. So our commission in terms of performance stands at 82% for the year under review. So the next slide just is a graphical presentation just to show the percentages that I was talking to for all the programs in terms of the percentages that I reflected on. And the other one, it has to do with the organizational overall achievement, which is, I've already emphasized that we have achieved 82%. On top there, we are able to see that 82%. Then I come to program 1, going to program by program, Chair. So if we look at the slide that I've showed now, you will see, Chair, that we have achieved all in that slide, and I'm not sure, Chair, whether I should waste a lot of time on those that have achieved, but for the benefit of perhaps other members who have not been part of the engagements in the past, yeah, this program had aimed to have some recommendations made from plenary, that is our oversight committee, that we should have produced and implemented, and we managed to implement those that were made as prioritized recommendations. And we also have the office of the CEO, because they are clubbed. Program 1, it has to do with finance, it has to do with human resources, it has to do with the oversight, and also the administration, that is the CEO's office. So we are clubbed there. So we do the reviews of quarterly reports, which we have achieved throughout. And if we go to other levels, we find that we needed to do our financial statements as it was required by the audits. So that was done throughout the whole financial year. And of course, the issues of internal audit reports that were supposed to be produced, we managed to do all those. So when we go to another slide, still we have achieved, and one we have overachieved, still under administration, the issues of the agreements, performance agreements that we need to sign in line with our strategy, that has been done in time, and the issues of workplace skills development, because in previous years we've been struggling here in terms of trying to focus on this for our employees. But in the year under review, we managed to even go beyond 100%, so it's 155. And this is because of the backlog that we had, because during COVID-19, if you recall, we were not able to do some of these trainings. So we capitalized in the last quarter when the window opened for us to make sure that everyone goes for these trainings. So again, in the next slide, we find now the slide that talks to program 1, but with some targets that were not achieved. This has to do with some of the findings that we were dealing with from the audit point of view, which we could not complete. And those had to do with what we call disciplinary processes. Those are the findings that we are dealing with currently, and we are hoping that they will be concluded soon. Actually, one of them is waiting for the verdict, and the other one is now going to sit, and we're hoping it will be the last sitting, and then we would have concluded this in this financial year as well. So these were the outstanding ones, and the other one had to do with the achievement of risk reports. Now, the history behind this is that we as management would do our own risks, but we got an advice that since the risk committee was chaired by the CFO, so he can't be a player and a referee at the same time. So we needed to find somebody or a consultant who can help us independently to assess our risks and see if we are dealing with these things appropriately. So we then appointed a service provider, but the service provider was only appointed late in the fourth quarter in this financial year, and in the third quarter, and the service provider could only then produce the report on the fourth quarter. Hence, in terms of our target, we had wanted to have the report in the first quarter, second, but the fact that they were appointed on the third quarter, they only produced the report on the fourth quarter, and that was the setback for that achievement. So if we look at that column, then the reason of deviation does give information on that. So the overall achievement of this program 1 is 75%, as we have indicated. Now we go to program 2, which is legal services and conflict resolution. The legal services and conflict resolution targets in terms of handling the complaints were 80, especially those that are new complaints, because the indicator was divided after the advice from the audit in the other year, before the 21-22. They said we should separate it, and we separated it, and we made those amendments in the APP and resent to Parliament. So in terms of complaints that were received in the financial year under review, the legal services managed to deal with all of them almost. So it was rated overachieved, and will indicate in terms of how many they dealt with and how many were not dealt with. And then we find the other ones that had to do with the ones that we carried over from other years. We had achieved that, and the reason for achieving those two is because we reworked our strategy in terms of how we deal with the complaints. And that is the one that we have achieved. But then there's under legal services, in the next slide, we see a target that was not achieved, which is like 67% of received bills before Parliament or legislations that impact on cultural, religious, and domestic rights of communities as guided by received complaints. This one, in terms of our target, we had thought that we would manage to do all, but in our audit, the auditors managed to pick up one legislative bill that we did not manage to pick up from Parliament website, and that had to do with, I think, the basic education bill, which we are saying that we are going to be, actually we are already dealing with it in this current financial year to make sure that it is resolved. So the reason why we did not pick it up at that time, the only legal officer that we had at the time was also acting as a manager because the senior manager had resigned, and there were no other supporting staff members to assist her in terms of legal qualifications. And we only in the fourth quarter managed to get one on a temporary basis to augment the efforts of trying to get to some of the bills in Parliament. And that's why now there will be improvement compared to the year under review. The next slide, again, Chair, talks to the issue of reviewing of bills still, but focusing on municipal bylaws. In this one, we did not achieve, Chair, because we were focusing on all metros in the country, and we found that when we, on initiation bylaws, when we went to Buffalo City, we discovered that there was no initiation bylaw. And then we stood at 15 instead of 16 as our target. So in terms of auditors, they said, even though you have done that work, you must report it as not achieved because there was no bylaw that you could find there. Then you can give the reason why there's a difference of 16 to 15. Hence, there is that deviation reason that says there was no customary initiation bylaw in Buffalo Metropolitan Municipality to review. And our recommendation and engagement with them is that that should be in place as soon as possible. So this program too, in terms of achievement, overall achievement is 60%, as I've indicated. Now, we decided in terms of this program, because these are core programs, just to give a bit of flesh in terms of what are the issues that they are dealing with. If we look at this slide now, in terms of the complaints handling for 2021-22 financial year, we say we received about 68 complaints, and 34 were on religion, and 33 on culture, and 1 on language. Out of 68 cases, we managed to resolve 58, which we managed to finalize. Then, as I have said, that in terms of this outcome, the indicators were split. So if we go to 1.2 in terms of the presentation, then we see the carried over cases from 2020 to 2021 financial year. So at that time, we had carried over 20 cases, and 18 of those were finalized, and 2 are still in progress due to their complexities and are carried over to this current financial year. And when it comes to legislative reviews, the bills that we were checked Cannabis for Private Purpose Bill and the Witchcraft Suppression Act, just for information there. But the more details are in the report. Then we also have, in the same department, when we are still talking about the review of bylaws, 15 bylaws have been reviewed. One in slaughtering of animals for cultural and religious purposes. That was done at the City of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and City of Cape Town metropolitan municipalities. Now, what we discovered when we were reviewing these bills, we found that in those metros, the time period for application for slaughtering of animals must be revised to accommodate slaughtering for funerals, because that was not there, which is a traditional or cultural or practice to cultural and religious communities. Now, when we identified these gaps, the Commission goes back to these metropolitan municipalities and engages them and assists them in terms of how they should align their bylaws in line with the spirit of the Constitution. And that's the program we are engaged in currently. Then we went to Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality. What we found there was that the bylaw relating to slaughtering of animals should outline explicitly the procedures to be followed. So they do have the bylaw, but it does not articulate the procedures in terms of what is it that you are is supposed to be done when one has to slaughter and so on and so forth. And in that way, we are also engaging them and assisting the metro in terms of how they should actually, close that gap. When we go to City of Tshwane and eThekwini metropolitan municipalities, we found that the two should develop bylaws relating to cultural and religious slaughtering, or revise their current bylaws relating to keeping of animals to include cultural and religious slaughtering. So they don't specifically have, in terms of, slaughtering of animals, a bylaw, but they do have other bylaws that talk at the margins about these issues. But we are saying if they are still to stick on those, they should then develop those that will, areas that will talk to cultural and religious slaughtering, or revise their current bylaws relating to keeping of animals to include those. So we are working with them. We don't leave them just like that. Once we identify these gaps, we go back and assist them. Now, when we go to B, in terms of the presentation on the same slide, we talk about customary initiation schools bylaws. I've indicated that the difference that made us not to achieve the target of 16 on bylaws to 15 is because the Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality did not have the bylaw relating to customary initiation school. So just to give an indication. Then we go to program 3, which is public engagement and education. In terms of this slide, public education and engagement managed to achieve all their targets, and to an extent they even went beyond that because of some of the prioritization of finances, but also the demands that the communities were bringing to us when public engagement was engaging with them. So we even overachieved in terms of 2 indicators there, targets, and then we achieved on the other one. Then the overall for program 3 is 100% achievement. They achieved all their programs. When we go to program, the descriptive highlights for this engagement, we want to say that we managed to do 25 engagements with communities in the year under review. And the theme that we were treating in terms of engaging with these communities was helping communities to develop their diminished heritage, and we engaged with the Bakoni Royal Council in Mpumalanga, with the area of within the area of the jurisdiction of Hoshimashiho in Bushbuck Ridge, and in Limpopo we went to Sinwabarwana, and we also went to Makwarela under the Vembe District Municipality. And we also engaged with the Khoisan communities in Limpopo, in Polokwane, Mpumalanga, Mbombela, and Emalahleni. Free State, we went to Mangaung. Western Cape, we went to LC, Refer, and Lambens Bay, Saldanha Bay, and Drakenstein. I remember this was one of the questions in the past, Honorable Chair, that where did we go to the Eastern Cape? So we tried to show the footprints there. Then the unit also conducted engagements with the Muslim communities, stakeholder engagement with the South African Hajj and Umrah Council and the Muslim religious leaders on the religious rights of Muslim communities. Then we also did 20 awareness campaigns with communities under the theme Promoting Cultural Diversity in Our Local Communities and Promotion of Religious Diversity. The campaigns were conducted in the following provinces: in the Northwest, Hartbeesfontein, Jobetina, Alabama, Kuma, Bloemhof. That's where we went. And in the Eastern Cape, of course, we went to Libode, Mamlweni, Nyandeni, and Peleni. Those are the areas that the Commission managed to visit in terms of the public education in the year under review. Program 4 has to do with research and policy development, and the targets for the year under review were 4 research to be produced, which we managed to produce them, and then we, as a department, we managed to achieve 100% of those targets, but we are going to give the details now in terms of some of the reports that we have dealt with, just to give an indication. The first report was asking a question in terms of, is African traditional religion equivalent to traditional healing? And the objectives for that was to understand African traditional religion as a religion, and also to explore how African traditional religion can be elevated to the same equal status as all other religions. To understand why is African traditional religion always represented and talked about during debates and ceremonies by other people like traditional healers and not by its own followers. And then we made some recommendations just to give some few highlights, that African traditional healing and African traditional religion are 2 separate institutions and should never be mixed up. And then African religion must be promoted and where possible be more documented. Then the third one, the Department of Health should promote the profession of traditional healing to the same level as it does with Western doctors. These are some of the issues we managed to highlight there. The second report has to do with the resuscitation of African cultural values. This report, Chair, had to focus on trying to explore how communities could resuscitate their cultural values, and also to understand how African cultural values could complement and promote social cohesion, moral regeneration, and nation building, so that we come up with strategies of how communities could resuscitate the core value of Ubuntu. So the recommendations that are made in terms of that report is that the core values should be cultivated in the family unit, and community targeting young people at early age. That is the emphasis we are saying. We're saying, well, we may expect certain values from our communities and so on and so forth, but if we don't start from our own families, then we'll create a problem even for the community that we expect sometimes to behave in a particular way. The Department of Education and Higher Learning should promote African values and ensure that they form part of schools and universities' curriculums. That is part of the recommendations we have actually made. Then traditional leadership should be given the space and be supported in a conscious effort to assert African historical traditions, values, and consciousness. And the report concludes by recommending the competition that exists between the rights bestowed on us by the Constitution and customary law on rights and values needs to be looked at, and a scientific study should be conducted to promote values from both these 2 systems of laws equally. In other words, we're saying we must find a space also for the cultural perspectives when we're dealing with issues and values and certain operations in our communities, even to an extent of legislations. So the third report talks to the constitutional rights of unmarried biological fathers within the CRL community rights in a diverse country. On this one, the objectives was to understand the cultural community's rights and traditions against the backdrop of the Constitutional Court ruling awarding the biological unmarried father's rights to register his child with his surname. And the second one was to hear from different cultural communities if, according to their culture, biological unmarried fathers have rights, and then to understand the cultural process practiced or followed in a case where a child is born from two unmarried people. I hope, Chair, the aircon is okay for other people. Sharon has the remote. Sorry, I can. Yes, yes, we have given them the remote. It's, oh, it's not working. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes, there was an indication that we should reduce it when they came in. Thank you, and sorry for that, Chair. Sorry. The recommendations on this report, we say in matters that affect the constitution and cultures of people, the Constitutional Court should consult with cultural experts and traditional leaders to hear their counsel before pronouncing on matters that affect people's cultures and way of life. And then the other one is to say that efforts must be made by the courts to align their judgments with the cultural, religious, and traditional beliefs of all South African citizens. So if we follow some of the cases in courts, you will see the cultural dynamics coming into a play. I can't refer to specific cases, but some are still pending as we speak in court now, from Gauteng and so on and so forth, the high-profile cases that we all know of the soccer player as well. So these are the influential issues that we are talking about. Then the last one is the use of official languages by organs of state. On this one, the objectives were to look at how far the organs of state have gone with the use of all official languages. And the second one is positive measures the organs of state are employing to elevate the status and advance the use of these languages. And the third one, what organs of state have put in place to regulate and monitor the use of the official languages in their respective units. And the other two, to what extent do the official languages enjoy parity of esteem and equitable freedom? And the last one, what efforts are organs of state making to elevate and promote official languages to become languages of record, teaching, research, science, technology, and commerce? So on this one, we have recommended, just to highlight some few recommendations, that in order to enjoy parity of esteem, languages must be used as languages of record, teaching, research, science, technology, and commerce. That public service centers where the public can send their complaints about the unequal use of official languages by organs of state should be established as soon as possible. And then organs of state should share publications and communicate with the members of the public more effectively about their linguistic rights in their own languages and in languages spoken in the areas of origins where they live. This one also talks to what we call the marginalized languages other than the official languages, Chair. Then the spoken and used regional languages should be streamlined and should be granted official status in the regions where they are spoken. Now, we've put the note there to say this report will be launched and full details will be on the independent report, and we are hoping this is the one of the reports that we may have to share with the members in full details, because we may want a strategic intervention in terms of how we deal with these issues going forward. So this report is going to be launched in February, before the end of the financial year. We should have actually launched it, but we felt that we needed more information from the departments, and then we extended the completion of the report and launched to February next year. So this we are likely to share. Then when we go to Program 5, that has to do with communications and marketing, just to support the work that the core programs are doing, but in terms of their strategy, they managed to achieve all their targets in that respect. And then they stand at 100%, as I've indicated. Then we go to the summary of targets not achieved and strategies to address the same. When we look at some of the targets that were not achieved, number one, that has to do with internal and external audit findings to be resolved annually. We are saying the remaining queries are under investigation, and the report will be updated as soon as the matters are concluded. And it is our view that we will manage to deal with all those disciplinary processes that we've talked about, because the findings are aligned to that. And then the other one has to do with the implementation of risk management strategy, which we said that We had appointed the consultant during the third quarter, so they couldn't do first and second quarter. But service provider then was appointed in the third quarter. Risk assessment was done in the third quarter. A risk report was compiled in the fourth quarter, and the reports will be finalized in the current financial year. So we'll catch up already. We have put something in place there. Then the last one has to do with the review of bills. And we say, due to insufficient human capacity at the time, the unit missed the Basic Education Amendment Bill, as it was focusing more on the legislative review of the Witchcraft Suppression Act in the last quarter of the financial year. So the bill, however, will still be reviewed in the new financial year, as I've indicated. So we go to the finances now, Chair, and perhaps I'll take a breather and allow the CFO to go through these 2 slides.
Opportunity. So in respect of compensation of employees, we had budgeted for 27, close to 28 million. We've spent 26 million on that. 1.9 million was not spent. I will give reasons just in the next slide, so just not to duplicate, I will just now focus on the figures themselves. For goods and services, the budget was 18.3 million. 12.8 million was spent, so 5.4 million was not spent, 29.95%. Overall, we had 46 million, 0.2. We managed to spend the 38.8 million, 7.4 was left, and that comes to 16% of the budget that we did not use. The reasons for underspending, in respect of employee costs, the underspending is a result of vacancies that were filled during the fourth quarter of the financial year. So the recruitment processes was a little bit slow, so we managed to appoint the people in the fourth quarter. And then in respect of goods and services, internal audit services also started a new contract in the fourth quarter. So a lot of all the work that was done in the fourth quarter, but payment is then subsequent. So it carried over to the current financial year, the payments of those services. And then the retained earnings, there was the auditors was of the opinion that we must raise a provision for money that might be returned to Treasury, which did not materialize. So we reversed that money in the current year or the year under review. So that exaggerate the under expenditure on goods and services, because that 3 million reduced what we actually spent accounting transaction there. So, and then the reduction, the external auditors, since COVID for the last 2 financial years, they've had a reduced scope of auditing in respect of performance information, not on finance and compliance, but on performance information. They only audited selected one of the 5 programs, and that also led to a little bit of a reduction in costs in respect of the external auditors. Then the irregular expenditure, that's always a big elephant in the room. There were no additional irregular expenditures reported under the year of review, so we managed to get that under control. And the past irregular expenditures have been investigated, and the request for condonation is currently with Treasury. So we are awaiting that feedback from Treasury. And then the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, also no new cases happened. So we also managed to keep that under control. And there is disciplinary processes underway in respect of the cases that was reported in the prior years. And those we as my CEO already actually reported, those we expect to conclude very soon. They're already in an advanced stage of the hearings. And then the recoverability of the funds from suppliers that were found to be involved in these wasteful expenditures is currently being investigated to see the feasibility of us recovering the money, and that is where we are with wasteful expenditure. Chair, that is my 2 cents.
Thanks, Chair. In conclusion, we are putting a slide there, Chair, that depicts people and engagements. We are saying our job as a commission is more in the local communities. That's where we need to be, more than perhaps Johannesburg. We must be in rural areas. You know, so that we can have a feel in terms of what our people are experiencing there. As we have indicated in the past, Chair, and I know the sentiments of the committee, that they are supporting us, that indeed, where possible, we need to get some resources for us to be able to have a provincial footprint. And we are trying to do our best under the circumstances now. In terms of restructuring, we say, what is it that we can do so that we can take the work down to the people, instead of us flying all the time to the provinces, and perhaps we don't even get deeper to those deep rural areas, but we go to the centralized places where we think we can do the work. We are saying in the future, that is the vision that the Commission has, to make sure that we get there. Of course, the support of the committee is important, that one day perhaps the committee will get one department that is just returning some money and say, just use this money to increase the baseline of the commission so that they can be able to have the provincial footprints going forward. And Chairperson, thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. That is the end of our presentation.
Thank you. I'm sure when we started, Mr. Mashishi from the Department of Traditional Affairs was, I didn't welcome him. Mr. Brian Adams, the Deputy Minister, apologized yesterday that he was joining the Deputy President in some province, I think it's the Northern Cape. So we should have indicated that, so welcome. I am not sure as well, I didn't ask for apologies when we started, before I allow members. If there's any apology that needs to be noted, we can note that. But I'm preparing you members for reacting to the presentation. Honorable Space, you are number 1.
No.
Oh, on apologies. Okay.
Honorable Brink is just going to be like, he just had a bit of a crisis that he had to deal with.
Okay. Oh, we're still on apologies.
Chair, I would like to be excused around 11:10 if you are not done.
Okay. You will not. Okay. And Mamki's Honorable Klavanchaba, we would like to apologize for the call she had to take. She did show it to me, and I approved that she must take the call. So apologies for that disruption. No. Now it's discussions, honorable members, and then let me start. Honorable Mkhalifi, Honorable Hadebe, Honorable Klavancha. Can we? Oh, Honorable Msimang, Honorable Mpumza. Let's follow that order.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation, Commissioners. Indeed, it has been a long time, and we are very grateful that we are meeting again, and there is no life that was lost since COVID-19 on your side, although on our side we lost one member, which is Umamutlo. During the portfolio committee of the CRL Rights Commission Chairperson, on the 28th of April 2021, attention was drawn to a meeting of 20 November 2020. I know it's a very long time. Where the Commission reported that the Public Service Commission was assisting it with investigating irregular expenditure amounting to 933.8 million due to an irregular appointment of an internal audit service provider. The Commission's response was that the investigation was still underway. Is this still the case? If we can be provided with that one. On your presentation today, I'm happy that Mr. Mafanza was also sharing with us in details which communities, because I wanted to know which communities do you visit, but I know you have shared with us here. But my question will be, how do you choose these communities? Would say, okay, I'm going to Mpumalanga, I'm going to Eastern Cape. What is your criteria to choose the communities? Because I think that all communities in South Africa, they want you because they have problems. But knowing very well that in terms of the capacity, you can't reach to each and every community. But at least in you even said that there was a slightly concern that you haven't been in Eastern Cape, so you wanted to show your footprint. So even if in KZN, in all other parts of South Africans, I'm sure they need your footprint. So please clarify to the committee, Awuti, what is the criteria? And if my memory serves me right, there was also a pending issue regards to those churches that are not regulated. So how far with that issue? Is it resolved now? Because anyone who just think that, now I'm bored here at home, far away from South Africa, let me go to South Africa and then establish a church, I'll be rich within a week. And that also, I mean, previously, I have not heard anything recently whereby abantu badliswa inyoka, paraffin in the name of God.
I received, Papa.
So I don't know what also, why it's no longer happening. Because at some point, other communities were up in arms. They were also attending to those issues as communities, because it was also unethical, against the law, etc. But as the commission, what is the status now? Although we can give you feedback because we are also members of the public as well. That is one. The commission spoke about, you even said that you have not met your target because one of the municipalities was not dealing with bylaws in terms of those things of what we call slaughtering. I will have a problem the way we address this thing of slaughtering, because I even said that it must be, the bylaws must be amended to accommodate slaughtering of funerals. We don't slaughter as Africans for funerals only. I'm not saying it's your problem or it's your, I mean, I know it's law, it's bylaws. So if there's law, you have to follow the law. But I think as a commission, we must have an approach. Because most of the black people or black community, they don't slaughter just because there's a funeral. We slaughter if I want to hlabela madlozi akamkhaliphi, I have to. But now there are bylaws that are also restricting me where I stay. But no, I can't just go and talk to my ancestors through my culture. And then I have to go and apply because my neighbor, it happens to be Begi Hadebe with an R this time, who does not subscribe to my culture. And then according to the law, I'm also being restricted. I can't because Begi will go and complain. This is a violation of my culture. And I don't go and violate Begi's culture. if he wants to practice his culture or whatever culture. So I really want to hear the commission on that one. How do you approach in terms of dealing with that? Because as much as I understand it, that none in Ghana Pagat Senate, okay, there is law, let us check the law, but the law itself is a problem. I know what you are going to say to me, Commissioner Mafanza, but you are the lawmakers. You guys are the lawmakers. But as a commission, I think we must have a mandate or in terms of approaching this thing, because it's remained a problem to us. At some point, Chair, I know what you also deals with the cultural, linguistics, and the coexistence of community. Sige Sabano, I don't know if you're going to hear me when I'm switching to my Sizulu. So at some point there was a serious problem whereby our communities, because of various factors, I must say, I see Peggy now because he's from Zimbabwe, he's from Malawi, as a person who's not supposed to stay within this community. And I think, I don't know if it's your commission, but somewhere in the space of Uhulumeni, we're trying to say, no, let us have programs whereby we are going to teach each other that, no, we're one thing. I mean, you are human beings, we must coexist, etc. So what are the programs talks to that? Because when those things happen, let's say my analysis or my take is that when the particular community is experiencing unemployment, poverty, they just turn to African brothers and say, no, this person is having a spaza shop, is from Somalia, and then he must be banned or he must be dealt with. And then how do you, NINAG, as a commission, you come and to intervene? Because at the end of the day, we as communities, we must coexist. Thank you very much, Chair.
Number 2.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Ngesingis, but let me piggyback on your question. I was also asking myself, for other cultures to be fully practiced, one has to apply slaughtering the cow. And I was just thinking, vis-a-vis those who enjoy their culture with barbecue and braai, they don't apply. And they still have a long way to go to address these cultural imbalances. Why Upegi, when he has to bury his mom and slaughter a cow, I have to apply? When others are practicing their culture, they're not compelled to apply. Is it because our culture is dangerous, so it must be regulated, and how to fully practice our culture? That's just a thought. But it's concerning that when it comes to city of Tshwane, they don't have a bylaw. If city of Tshwane and Tekwini should develop a bylaw related to cultural and religious slaughtering of cows. So what are the negative impact? Why has it taken this long for a Tekwini to develop such? Or are they antagonistic towards that approach? Like I had already expressed the view to say, to me it does not augur well. We can't be regulating everything in the country. Slaughter a cow, you must get permission to someone not even related to your culture or family. I can imagine a CFO having to go through an application of slaughtering a cow. Something that you have not practiced in your family, and then you tell me, no, I can't. But perhaps you'll explain at length, those that are responsible for processing application, do they grasp the cultural background that goes with it in terms of approving? Or differently put, has there been instances where these applications have been turned down, and on what basis have they been turned down? And I'm also interested to know the areas that you have highlighted, you having been visited. In the Western Cape, you mentioned Elsa's refer. I thought at some point you would also mention the Cape Flats issues and challenges of drug abuse. I see there's a bylaw that deals with cannabis as well. The criteria used to identify these communities. Coming to your slide, it's a good thing you have not, in this current year under review, incur any fruitless, wasteful, unauthorized expenditure. However, the report indicates that there's still 11.9 million of irregular expenditure from previous years, and 1.6 million for fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And in your report, you are saying you have applied for condonation. This has been an ongoing issue. The details are very important. When did you apply? Why has it been? Why has it taken this long for you to get the condonation from National Treasury? So it's going to help in understanding whether or not the delay is on your side or it's with National Treasury. You only mentioned about 2 cases that you are on the verge of concluding. Is it only those 2 cases that in relation to your fruitless and wasteful expenditure? Is it only 2 cases? Okay, yes, I've already asked when was the request sent to National Treasury. The issue about the use of official languages. Why is the focus only on public organ of state? Are you only interested in seeing organ of state using all official language, and your interest is not focused on private sector, the domestic workers and their bosses, to ensure that at least some level of consideration is given, because the Fanaga law started there. I law, Google clean. So I'm just saying, like, just private sector. Are you planning in the near future to also focus on enforcing such on the private sector? I've made notes, Chair, but I think okay. All right, the issue that was raised of the cannabis, may consult my notes properly so that I don't speak out of 10. So I think again we've had an interaction. So I'm interested in this review of cannabis for private purposes and witchcraft. What findings were derived from these reviews in terms of the impact on the culture, religious and linguistic communities? Are you in the position to share with us the impact of the review? I was even surprised that we are legislating for everything, even for witchcraft. But those are the few issues that I had, and thank you so much. I think, okay, let me leave others to my colleagues. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greeting to all the department who are presenting. Chair, You see, sometimes things, they can make me to be easily demoralized. They call that was calling me, is demoralizing me. I don't even have a energy today. But I will ask, because there is something that I've been touching my culture in this department. Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, I want to say, Honorable Mkhalipi has been taking all my questions, but I will be trying. The issues of, we have many tenders in South Africa, church tenders in South Africa, that they are opening church, but at night they are selling drugs to our children. What is the CRL doing about that? We don't want these tenders. Serious. It's not the first time I raised this issue of tent that at night, because I'm staying in Ivory Park. In Ivory Park, there are many church tenders there. If there is a space, the people who come from outside South Africa, they must come and put a tent and say it is a church. But at night, there's something else. What is the CRL doing about that? Please help us. We don't have any children now at a location, especially in Ivory Park, because of drugs. All of them, they are drunk. We want you to maybe concentrate on that than to concentrate on regulating our cultures, because you can't regulate it about culture. What are you gonna do about my surname? Because my surname allows me to put this. This is a, what you call? Skin coat. This one, yeah, coat, spine. This. Mina, I want to say to the CRL, please, man, don't bring the Western culture in this. This is Africa. In Africa, we have our own. The Western culture must stay there in Europe, must stay there in what you call, in America, in England. The Western culture of regulating everything. Don't hear. Here we can't regulate our culture. This is my culture. Go to the Queen. Talk to the Queen to regulate everything, not here. Here we are African. Africans, we have our cultures, and also we are different cultures. I cannot step in your culture. You cannot step in my culture. You have your own culture, you have your own surname, I have my own surname. In my own surname, I'm doing culture in different way. So, how can you regulate those things? You can regulate Kasa's family culture. You can regulate my culture. How can you differentiate this regulation that you, or you want to put us in one basket in this regulation to say all of us, you must not do anything about our culture? No, it cannot happen. I mean, I don't allow this in my family. It cannot happen. Concentrating the drug dealers in the 10 church, many churches in the country that are selling drugs, are making our children to be dying, drunk, everything. That is wrong. This culture is not wrong. I have my own goat in my house, in my yard. I can kill them anytime because it's my culture. Because I want to eat it and talk to my ancestors. They told me that when I want to talk to them, I must kill the goat or the chicken or the cow. What are you going to regulate on that? No, wait, you are wasting the time and you are wasting the money for that. Do something else. Please help us about the many churches, mushrooming churches at night. Early in the morning, there is a church in this place, there is a church in this. Where are you? Thank you, Chair.
Number 4. Who is number 4?
Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you to the commissioners. And I must first appreciate the presentation. that has been presented to us. A number of issues that I wanted to raise have been raised. One of them was the issue around the regulation of those of churches. If you can be able to give us just the sense of how far are you with that. A question yesterday when we met the entities of the department was asked to say, in most of the times you craft APPs, annual performance plans, without the involvement of members of parliament. You say this is what we intend to achieve, this is what we are definitely going to do. You also, cost it, put amount of money, say this is how. But along the way, or at the end of the financial year, some of these plans are not achieved. Now, you've got to tell us as to say, why must we support this? Suppose you keep on doing them. Annual plans, you put them in place, but come financially, and some of these plans are not achieved. And what is interesting, Mafadza, you are saying you want more money for you to be able to achieve more, yet you are not finishing what you had planned before. So take us into confidence to say, do you have strategies of making sure, because this thing of returning money back to Treasury is a problem. Because we are representing South Africans that needs these opportunities, needs this, because I believe that one APP that is not performed it closes an opportunity to certain people that would have benefited out of that annual performance plan if it was implemented in that particular time. I want to throw the spanner in the works. There is something that has been, making me to think as to say, we're now in Parliament, and all along I always wanted to ask this question, to say, when you look at, for instance, when you are driving, now this has to do with the issue of languages. To say, it looks like as if there are some languages that are more important than others. Maybe you must explain to me, or try to assist as to say, how can we resolve this matter? For instance, when you drive on the highway in Johannesburg or wherever, you see a sign that says this road turns, let's say in Midrand. Now it shows you by on the board that say it turns to Midrand. But there is always that Afrikaans net that is always there. And I'm mindful of the fact that I'm sitting next to Mr. Groenewald while I'm saying this. I'm mindful of that. But I'm saying, because for me, it makes me to ask whether Afrikaans English is treated as more than Zulu, Sevenda, and Sitsonga, and other languages. And how do we then make sure that these languages, because honestly speaking, we still have this, and it's a matter that we've got to, because we can't be saying this is a new South Africa that regards all people as equal, yet we're unable to talk to this question as to say whether these languages are equal or not equal. And then these are the things that we must confront. So that we get to understand that what makes this net, which is more of an Afrikaans than anything else, always there than other languages. Of course, maybe the argument might say, but imagine in a board on the road having 9 languages and you can't. But at least we must have, at some point, changes that says yes, you have that, but in other points, let's have other languages in order for us, because we are saying these languages are equal, unless we only put it out there, but in practice, we're not really practicing that. So if really languages are equal, why are we only having that English and that Afrikaans without having Shivenda and Tsonga? I said I made what do you call this? When I started this statement, I'm throwing the spanner in the works. I'm saying let's just maybe if possible, so that you are able to to help us understand this, and if possible, and say how can we then make sure that we have a particular process that we start in order to make sure that we redress this in order to make sure that it goes back to where we can finally say languages are indeed equal. Thank you so much.
Number 5.
Thanks, good morning once more. Chair, on a program, first let's commend the Commission for achieving a clean audit. The challenge now, CFO, is how to sustain that clean audit going forward. Because the day you regress will be upon you. Yeah. I want to speak on program 2 and 3, Chair. I see the number of complaints that the Commission had received and processed and all that. But I am of the view that the conflict resolution program is not sufficient enough. Because I am of the view that you rely on complaints that you are receiving. The fact that you do not have a footprint in the provinces is actually putting you on a back foot in that communities, cultural and religious communities, do not know that there is a commission for their cultural, linguistic rights, where to go to when they have challenges. So you rely on visiting provinces because you don't have a footprint in the province. Until then, you had a footprint of the structure in the provinces with clear offices. Your education awareness would be impactful by the mere physical presence of an office in a province. And indeed, you will be accessible to a number of religious and cultural complaints by communities because they will be aware that there is. For instance, I know that my cousin brother is a pastor in the Presbyterian Church. There had been a conflict there, I know, where they had to come into the church with guns and everything. Pastors fighting. Some closing the church, some opening the church and all those things. I don't remember him, because I remember he came to me and said, hey, what do you think my brother must do? I said, resign. because the church you are running is Namtata. and I'm here in Mandela. The other thing is that, or you take this matter, because I remember saying we want to relocate to Coxted. But I said, this matter you should have taken up to the commission. I said, what commission? I said, oh, you're a pastor, I don't know that there is a religion. I said, no, I don't know. He's an educated man. Eh? Secondly, around this question of conflict resolution, recently, Prof, I don't know whether you have allowed this thing to be handled by the courts. Cultural matters. Braamfontein, there are two kings there now. Because the court has actually declared the other one. Then the dead current king, son is no more. So now you have now two kings in two areas. That is a conflict. And I was listening sometime over the radio that there is a conflict here in Limpopo, the Lobeti tribe, whatever. That young girl was taken to sanctuary somewhere in the Eastern Cape. And the young man who's being now enthroned. Where is the CRL in this picture? Where is it? Because this is a cultural matter. But now the courts are at the center playing and messing up all these things. And then the courts, from the Roman Dutch law, they are addressing cultural and traditional institutions using the Roman Dutch law. And this will continue to bring conflict that will never be resolved. That's why I'm saying then, perhaps around this question of legal services and conflict resolution, the day then we have the capability of detecting where these complaints are CO, detecting, not relying on complaints that are coming. You will be proactive because you will be able to detect when we have a footprint in the provinces. Well, when we have this city here in the boardroom in Johannesburg, once perhaps in here you go out to Limpopo, and those problems are happening in a minute, in an hour, you are not there. That's why I'm saying perhaps you need to review that and see how you position yourselves in order to perform your task as a commission, chapter and an institution effectively in upholding and defending the cultural, linguistic, and religious rights of communities. The other one is that at some point, I don't think that you have closed the engagement around the issue raised by my colleague and Umama Umamkiz. The flourishing of these charismatic and many other churches against established churches. That the engagement that you started into how to deal with this matter, because I understand that whilst you were having those stakeholder engagement, you have not yet finalized them. It's only when the COVID got in. When are you beginning to say that you will be closing that process of engaging religious communities to begin to be addressing this issue? I know that they are violently opposed to your recommendation of peer review because they are suspicious that the state is beginning to get into and tamper with the freedom of the religion. And again, you were conducting some investigations around one other church in KZN. I forget his name. And what? Yeah, Caesar something. Particularly the abuses that are prevalent there. Why I don't forget is because my sister is a member of that. As funny, you give me as a Kaban, one girl, but ungangixeleli ngezi-culture zakho na fuck off. Now, to what extent then have you gone with that investigation with the purpose of perhaps beginning to resolve the abuses within that church? Again, you, as a commission, you are busy ensuring that linguistic and cultural rights are restored. In your program, you were once busy with the restoration of diminished indigenous languages like the Khoisan, the Pondo, the Klesibe, and I can't speak my language because it's not recognized. Mtrampe and other indigenous languages. How far are you in ensuring that those diminished languages are indeed resuscitated and officially recognized as official languages in the Republic of South Africa? Thanks, Chair.
Number six. You want to add? Can we allow the addition?
No, thanks, Chair. I forgot to add this question. On your review of the bylaw, especially in reference to this slaughtering of so when you conducted your review, did you manage to find out whether or not municipalities have experts in all our South African culture in crafting their bylaws? For example, in the Eastern Cape, are there municipalities in that area only focusing on Xhosa culture when drafting the bylaw of slaughtering? In Limpopo, is the focus only on Chivenda and Tsonga, or the bylaw is standard, it encompasses all cultures? The second aspect, Chair, is that any bylaw that is passed, it must be able to be implemented, monitored and enforced. For example, for traffic users, there are traffic officers and law enforcement on the road when you speed. What mechanism do municipalities have in ensuring that this is enforced? Lastly, I could not understand this affecting your target, the Buffalo City not having a bylaw, and then it's affecting. Is it your responsibility to enact this bylaw? How can you review something that's not there? Why did it affect? So please explain the logic that's affecting. I mean, if it's not there, you can't review it. And I don't think it's your, as a commission, it's your responsibility to enact municipal bylaws. So how did it affect your target? Thank you.
Numbers. Let's these additions now. Let's.
Chair, the last one for me.
Oh, it's number no. Let me follow the order until the end. Then you'll make follow-ups. It's number 6 now, and then I'll come to you. No, it's Honorable Space. Is it not you?
Yes, it's me. Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, just one small matter, and maybe it's not small, and I didn't hear that it was actually brought up. It's the fact that the Commission reportedly lost a vehicle to theft in April 2022, and it says that the insurance reportedly covered the loss partially. So what we want to know was the vehicle, what was its market value, and how much did the insurance cover, and also how much excess did the Commission pay, and was there any possible negligence by staff investigated? Then my second one, Chair, is just on the summary of results in terms of targets per program, and I particularly refer to the program 5, communication, marketing and IT and linkages, and it says there a 100% achievement. Just on that, you know, when people, I ask people in the street, you know, do you want to know what the CRL is? People don't know. If you ask people what is the HRC, they would know. If you are really very, very, very serious and you want to be out there and you want to help communities that really needs your assistance and can access you, I think we need to work on people understanding what exactly the CRL is, what it stands for, but also what issues is it that they actually can bring to this platform. You've seen this chair struggling with saying what the CRL is. So the ordinary person in the street needs to know there is such a channel of support for them that is relevant to your commission. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ronald.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, in terms of my mindful colleague next to me, I'm going to go easy about it. But in terms of all languages in South Africa, some is more developed than others. How do you get all of them developed to a stage where they can be in university, implemented? And that thing, I think, is a question that is quite important to get all languages to a place where you can teach in it. My wife is a teacher, and just a small thing to tell. She's giving school to a black community. The people that comes into the school are, I can say, mindful on only using English. But in grade 1 and 2, if you do not understand English, then you have to go and learn in grade 1 and 2 English, then to go on to grade 3 and 4 and 5. So in grade 3, already they do not understand maths. What can we do to implement more mother tongue language in South Africa? What can we do to develop languages in South Africa so that everybody can use their own language? Thank you, Chair.
I've exhausted the list. Now, these ones who wanted to follow up before Honorable Mbumza.
The witchcraft suppression, I know they are talking about the review program, but this is I'm not conversant with the Act yet. I wanted to understand the objectives of passing this particular Act. What did you want to regulate?
Stop witchcraft.
Or to stop witchcraft? Or to regulate witchcraft? Why I'm raising this, because I know that in my constituency, a case was brought into my office where a young man had stabbed her mother, accusing her of witchcraft. When this woman went to the police station to open a case, the police said, no, we don't deal with witchcraft. There's nothing like that. We can't open a case around witchcraft. The only thing we must do just open a case of being attacked. Finish. So that's why I said I want to clear that. The last change is that South Africa is open to a number of immigrants, particularly in the African community. And who actually, because even if they are refugees, whatever, but the unfortunate thing in South Africa, even refugees, the UN in South Africa is not accommodating those refugees in a demarcated area. In South Africa, they are allowed to go and reside in the township with the African people. And then definitely, a language barrier might pose a threat to a conflict in that community. Now, at what stage is that the Commission would recommend? Yeah, English is a universal language, but not all our people are conversant with the English. And even ourselves, as South Africans, we don't have a common language as Africans to communicate, except this Fanagalo. At what stage will the Commission think of an Africa, a lingua Africa language for us here, so that I'm able to communicate with my colleague who is a Mozambican here in South Africa in lingua Africa or lingua Africa language, because even there in Europe they have their own Romance language to communicate, which is not English, which is not German, which is a combination of those. So when are we here in South Africa? We'll arrive at a stage where we'll have a common language to communicate as Africans. Deputy Chair.
Honorable Braamfontein, that's the last one.
Thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me to come back. Chairperson, in South Africa, actually in Africa, we have this cultural of people, so-called Izangoma. Izangoma, amaxhwele, angakubala kube kuningi. Or traditional doctors sometimes, yes, but there are difference between traditional doctors and the Sangoma, because Sangoma is controlled by the ancestors. How can you regulate that thing? I want to know, what is the method that you can use to regulate the ancestors controlling somebody, a human being? No. You see, sometimes we must be clear when we are doing things here in Africa, because we don't want to be colonized. It seems like we are going back to the colonization if we regulate our culture. We can't. Even if you can, it cannot happen. I'm telling you, we are taking us back to the colonization. We were colonized in this country, and it was painful. To do your culture is not a criminal. To do your culture, whatever certain thing that you are using, but it's not a criminal to do your culture. That is your culture, especially the people who are controlled by the ancestors. Remember, Isangoma, sihlaba day and night. Doesn't have a time to go to Abelungu. Isangoma zwana Abelungu. You don't call it. You can't go to Abelungu. I offer permission. You're going to listen to those. Let's write down those things so that we won't forget. Isangoma cannot go to Abelungu and can't offer permission. You're going to culture yake, because that person is controlled by ancestors. You don't know the ancestors. Where you are sitting, you don't know my ancestors. Where they are sitting on the left or on the right. Because we can't see it. You see? It must help us, this commission, to defend our cultures. This commission must help us to defend all our cultures, because we have different cultures and different names. We're not doing the same culture because we are black. No. Cultures are different. Even the white people, they are not doing the same culture because they are white. Cultures are different. We can't regulate that things. In one by one surname, we are regulating. Because you must do that if you are regulating. And come to my Kaba family and ask us, Guti, Nezanjan, manenzi culture and Sikche, we regulating. Because the culture, we can't divorce our culture. Because yeah, come. We are not being colonized here, please. Thank you. We are are free. If you are free, you must be free. Thank you.
Yes, we are free. Honorable Director.
Thank you, Chair. I really support the fact that our culture should be supported. However, as we are supporting our culture, it should not be free for all. Because most of the cases that we have sometimes are implicating our culture. Not so long ago, we went to Eastern Cape on oversight, and when we arrived there, we then realized that some of the initiation schools were not following the proper procedure. So there are some people who are hiding behind culture. So I do support that it must be supported, but we need to come up with measures as to how do we regulate some of the activities. Yes, we do have traditional leaders, of which we believe it's a culture, but proper practices should be done. I think we used to have a situation where some of the people, when they got sick, instead of seeking medical treatment, they would go to Ilifes or something like that. And when they go there, some of them will die in that institution, and then we'll blame culture. Hence, we're saying that at least we must come up with measures to say, when we are in this particular situation, how best do we deal with that particular situation in a way that it will not paint a bad picture of our culture. So as much as we give our people freedom to deal with their culture, but we must have regulations. Because if we are not going to have regulations, it means that we are also going to have negative impact on our culture, as I've indicated in Eastern Cape. If they are not following proper procedures, our children will die, and it will reflect negatively in our culture. But if they follow the proper procedure, then it means everything will be done accordingly, and our culture will be embraced. So that was just my submission, Chair. Thank you.
So you were helping the commission. As we are talking freely, we must also know that we are a constitutional state. Okay. I think, Chairperson, now I will allow responses from your side. You will direct as to how it must be handled. Thanks.
Thank you very much, members of the Portfolio Committee. I will answer some of the questions and allow the CFO, CEO, and my deputy also to answer, because we're in this thing together. We are a team.
Is this the whole team?
This is the team.
Yes.
This is the team, yes. Yeah.
Why did you ask that question?
No, it's just that before I think there were more than 4.
Okay.
Yeah, Chair, perhaps maybe I should intervene. I think the question is, are these all commissioners?
No. This is the team that is presenting the report, not all commissioners. We are some, is it 11?
We initially 13 commissioners were appointed. 2 are full-time, is the chair and the deputy. So 11 are part-time. They are all over the provinces. And in that 11, I think 3 have resigned, 2 for their own personal growth. 1 has been appointed, I think it's an ambassador or a high commissioner in another country. Okay. And we do have managers in the offices.
Let's start off with the thorny issue of the irregular expenditure reported some years ago. It's a key one. I need the CFO or CEO to answer that, because it's a process we promise we have to undertake and conclude. wanted you to address the issue of the irregular expenditure because
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
it's an
Chair.
important management issue.
Yes. Chair, through you, we do acknowledge the fact that it has taken long for this matter to be resolved. We also experienced the same challenge to say this matter is taking long. But I must foreground the response and say we had just requested the public service to assist us voluntarily, and they deployed a person to assist us. The person came and did the investigations, but in the process, when we made a follow-up just before audit this year, again, because time and again he was not responding to our emails, but of late he responded and said he had frustrations, his computer had crashed, that he had actually worked on the investigation. So what he's doing, according to the email that I have here, he is reworking that information from the notes and trying to compile the report, and then he will communicate with us. That's where we are. The option that we are left with, if that report is not forthcoming, is to again restart the process and get somebody else to assist us in that process. And that's where we are in that matter. We are equally concerned about it, but I think we'll soon get somewhere. Yeah. Thank you.
The thorny issue of unregulated churches. Indeed, we have presented a report on the commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's belief system with a recommendation. The recommendation is titled between self-regulation and regulation. And of course, with the idea that there be umbrella bodies that will take account of churches that are offline in terms of the doctrine, in terms of code of conduct. That report is in Parliament. We don't know what the reaction of Parliament to that report is. But the benefits that has accrued of that report is that it has reduced the volume of activities that were hitherto taking place that affected the abuse of our people's belief systems and things like that. And of course, one of the recommendations has been taken up by the Home Affairs as part of how best to deal with the inflow of foreign religious leaders. And that is not our part. Our part is to make sure that religion is protected, freedom of religion is given space. However, that is not a license to abuse the adherents, the congregants, under the care of those religious institutions. And I think the argument to be made is this, that in the issue of regulation, a point must be made that one cannot regulate religion because religion is intangible. It cannot be touched. That which cannot be touched cannot be regulated. Now, what is it that can be regulated? The only thing that remains is behavior. Behavior can be regulated because behavior arises out of habit, and the habit can be good or bad. And because the habit is bad, it cannot be allowed to continue. So there is no sense of saying we are regulating a church. A church is a building, but we regulate the behavior of those who practice badly their faith and thereby affecting the lives of others. That's the thinking behind. CRL is not about shutting churches, sending away religious leaders. No, we are saying the institutions established for the functioning of flourishing the spirituality of the people, let them do so. And that's what needs to be protected and supported. And of course, I've just received a note that there is a church which is feeding African religious adherents with boerewors uncooked, whether that it's, but it's being investigated. We're under investigation. And also it's important that the law enforcement agency in the country has taken serious active steps, because there are a number of religious leaders across the board who have been arrested. And in fact, there is a list going around they call this the wall of shame, which gives a number of religious leaders who have been sentenced for life or for a variety of prison sentences. So this is the net effect of the role of the CRL in trying to cap the excesses with regard to the issue of abuse. Okay. And of course, the Honorable Kalipi raised the issue of coexistence, a very fundamental principle, which the Act encourages and mandates the Commission to follow through. When the Act speaks about tolerance, it really tries to say what needs to be done is to promote and foster tolerance. And tolerance is the cardinal feature for coexistence. Only when you live side by side and share the space, then you can. So we are trying to develop programs, because the Act simply say you protect and promote peacekeeping, friendship, tolerance, humanity. But it's only statements. What we are doing now is that, what is the program of peacemaking, for example? When we say communities must live in peace, what are the things that they must know to make sure that peace exists? What are the elements of tolerance? So these are the programs which we are developing. We have just called in for experts to help us develop these programs, because we believe that just talking about peacemaking without teaching people about how to keep peace, it's not enough. So that's what we're trying to do, honorable members. There is an issue here about the regulation of African culture. Why is African culture regulated or subject of regulation? You have people who practice the culture of Braai. They are not regulated. But when it comes to African people, they are regulated. Why? And I think this is a matter which we are looking into. We are looking into because in the country we have got organizations that promote the rights of animals. SAP, what do you call it? Yes. Now, if you slaughter in a place which is not regulated, I suppose, you get arrested. You can't, you get arrested. Now, we are trying to say that if there are these contestations, there must be a way in which you say, this is how we're going to do it. And African people must be allowed to do their rights to slaughter in the in the urban areas, wherever they are, in their homes, wherever they are. So to do that, we factor in the bylaws. The slaughter is allowed. You inform your neighbor, whatever the case may be. But I have not read the regulations themselves, but they are intended to make sure that there is peace among those that live around there. It's not to deny you to do it. It's not to deny you to do it. You have to do it. But there are processes for you to be able to do it for the sake of the bigger peace in that environment. So I am not in the business of saying African cultural practices should not be done, because all of these individuals do have their culture, they practice them in a different way. But how do we make sure that in doing so, we can continue to maintain our peace and live together side by side? So that is the issue. And then the area, which is also very, very important. What are the consideration that we take into account, or criteria that we set for ourselves if we go to a particular area? And I would like to visit, say, Eastern Cape or Mpumalanga and things like that. I think the CEO will have to take this and respond to it. What is the criteria that we consider in identifying one area against the other for visit as a what you call? Because the CEO was once a head of the public engagement and education. So there is a criteria set for that. Over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Through the Chair. I think we first acknowledge the fact that we may not go everywhere. But we need to take our services to where it matters most. So what we do, we work through looking at the fact that we are at national only. We don't have provincial footprint, so we work through provincial structures. We do use municipalities, that is district municipalities and local municipalities, to use their database of cultural, linguistic and religious communities to be able to lobby for those that would want to engage on a particular theme. We also use traditional leaders' councils in provinces. Personally, that I found that quite useful. You know, when you, like other areas, they're very organized. If you go to Eastern Cape and Nyandeni, unless they've changed now, it works very well. We had to to go to their communities through them. If you go to Ngadu in the Eastern Cape, it's the same thing. And if you go to Limpopo, the Ngove areas and so on and so forth, their councils are very organized. So you use those to touch base, including Nongoma, Honorable Khalid. We do get there, and we use those structures. But we also, Chair, in terms of our own act, are required to establish what we call community councils. So that is cultural, religious, and language community councils. So far in the commission, we've established plus minus, I think, 370. And we also use those to coordinate us to local communities in terms of our programs. But in general, all government, organs of states that have got, similar mandates or share the same sentiments, we use them, to reach out to the communities, including the local radio stations and also community radio stations. And that's what we use, Chair, for now. But there may be room for improvement, but for now, from national office, that's what we use. So we are of the view that if we really get closer to the local communities in terms of our presence, it will be much more effective to reach out to the communities. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. The question raised by Honorable churches, and criminals are dealt by the SAPS. So during the day, we see them as churches, and we go there. But what happens at night is what the SAPC must know, the SAPS, because that's a division of labor. But once we discover that there's something like that, in terms of our act, we refer them to the organ of state, to the South African Police Service to deal with it. And we're aware that there are places like that existing in different parts of the country. And it is good that we're talking about it in this medium, and that our communities must help us to get rid of those areas or those churches that seem to parade like churches in the day and then become drug dealers at night. It's not what we want to support as a commission. We want to protect the rights of religion, or religious people to practice their rights and enjoy it. So indeed, the culture of Europe must be in Europe, and the culture of Africa must be African. But culture is dynamic. Culture is not static. There are interfaces of culture as we live together side by side. But that does not mean undermine one culture at the expense of the other. So that we need to be looking at. I would request the deputy chair to deal with the equal languages. The equal languages. But before I give it to her, there's an issue that Honorable Msimang raised. Of course, the issue of regulation, we have dealt with it. It's about we as a commission crafting our plans, setting the targets, and failing to achieve the targets. What support should you give us? Sometimes there are reasons that we give in the failure to reach a target. If the reasons are not justifiably understandable or acceptable, that's where you hold us to account. Because those are the reasons why. But what is important is that in terms of the operational excellence, which we have adopted as a commission, is that we need to review quarterly our achievement of targets so that we can realign and reallocate resources where necessary. For example, we said each and every unit must be able to spend 25% of its budget, 25% every quarter, so that by the last quarter, we remain with 25%. So in the event of that misalignment, we're able to look at it, get it immediately, and correct it. So this is what we have adopted to make sure that we don't have the kinds of challenges of not completing the targets that we have set for ourselves. For instance, the issue why Buffalo has been discredited or taken out of our, we had actually completed 100%. We were doing it ourselves. The risk management, we were doing it ourselves. They said, no, now this is an advice from external audit. They said you can't claim to have achieved, even if you went there, you wanted to do it, but you didn't find the audit, the bylaws. Because you didn't find it, you didn't audit it, you didn't look at it. So you didn't find, so we have done the job, but they told us, no, you can't. Hence the subtraction of that 25% of our effort. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to address the issue of the languages. You mean I was not audible? Okay. No, thank you so much. I want to deal with the issue of the languages. I think there were more than 2 people who raised the issue of the languages. As CRL, we promote and protect the languages. We do not develop languages. We have Pencil, which is under the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. They are given a mandate to develop languages. They are the ones who go into the communities. They identify the communities that have diminished languages that needs to be developed. Now, as soon as they have developed these languages, they refer the matter to us. Even if they don't refer a matter to us, in our activities as we go around the communities, as soon as we pick up that there is a new language that has been developed, we take up the matter to promote the language. Now, it is not an easy task to develop a language. I would make an example. There are communities which wish that their languages could be developed. But when you dig deeper into the community, you find that the original speakers of that languages are no longer there, and the language is no longer spoken. And when you try to find people who can assist in developing, you don't find people who can assist. And I think that has been the challenge that PENSALB has been having. Because we once had a meeting with them and they explained that as PENSALB, they want to assist. But the problem is within the communities, you hardly find people who have interest in the language that was spoken, the original language. Most of the languages that they have are languages that have been diluted. You know that they are not the original languages. But then SCRL will keep on assisting those communities who come forth to us to say, we have developed our language, can you please assist us in promoting these languages? Now, another issue that has been raised is how the existing official languages are not given the same status. I think there's a reason for that. We are not condoning the issue that languages are not at the same level. But when you look at the way we use our languages, it's very historic. Even Parliament, as you are here, you don't use the same language. Even in Parliament, you don't use your individual languages. And I think that is where it comes from, to say, as much as we would want to have one language or all languages being getting the same level, we are not able to do that because of so many things. Number one, it's the issue of finances. Do we have enough finances to be able to implement that? Well, that is not our mandate. It's government's mandate. But number two, the way people are segmented in South Africa, sometimes it makes it difficult for people to promote their language. I think it worked better during the home state. People in Transkei would say we promote our language, our Xhosa language. They would all use that language in everything they do. People who are in the Setswana speaking area would do that, and it would be easy for them to do that. But in the way we are segmented, we still have to look for a better strategy, Honorable Mpumza, to have one language that can bring us together, that we can speak. But I want to also, yeah. I want to also touch on the issue of why are we focusing on the state-owned institutions. I think we have moved in as far as private sector is concerned. If you are aware, if you go to the banks will give you options of languages that you want to use. You go to the ATM, you have a choice of using Afrikaans, Setswana, Sesotho. I mean, that part, I think we have made an inroad. Now, for this particular project, we wanted to check how ready are we, or how have we moved as a state on the use of official languages. There is no other reason. It's not like we are prioritizing the state, we are leaving out the private sector. But I think private sector has done an effort to make sure that in their own little space, they promote the use of different languages. Chair, I want to pause here.
Thank you so much. In addition, why we are focusing on the organs of state is that they have got the language units. We want to see functionality, whether they are just there dormant, whether they're doing work. And that will serve the purpose of ensuring that the multi-language communication are derived from organs of state to reach the communities. So that's the reason we did that. Honorable Mpumza also raised the issue, which was also a caution. We have obtained clean audit. Can we sustain it? And that's a very important one. We believe we can. And we need to use the same strategies we obtained it to continue to make sure that we do that. And of course, the issue of the conflict resolution, the challenges because of the span of control, the fact that we are not in the communities. You have raised that issue quite sharply, that there are problems there which would require us to attend to. But because of the distance, because they are far away, because we don't have footprint there, those are the challenges. Of course, you gave even the problems of ministers who don't know whether we exist or not. And those are the issues that we need to be looking at. But more importantly is the issue of the cultural matters that tend to end up in courts, but not addressed by the CRL. Two challenges. The Equality Court, when they have matters of religious kind, they refer them to us. We have been able to deal with a matter of two religious institutions fighting, and we're able to adjudicate a peacemaking around that. We also were part of what is happening in Toyando in Venda to try to assist, and we have met the people here, try to see how best to enter in that fray. But because it's now a matter of court, you just become a friend of the court because the matter is now not in our hands. But where the traditional matters are referred to us directly by those that are involved, we can actually assist. But the situation is that they go to court and not talk to us. And of course, we deal with the traditional leaders, as you know. We interface with them, among them. So we are really offering our services that we can actually assist without having to take the court route in many instances. Of course, we have dealt with the issue of the churches. I thought we have done that. Yes. The issue of Kwasi Zabantu, it took some time but we have just concluded the investigation. We are now in the process of report writing, and maybe in the next few months the report will be ready for public and the recommendations thereof. The issue of the restoration of the diminished heritages, Mr. Mafaza, what are we doing to resuscitate the diminished and diminishing heritages? Chair, I thought maybe you will take that. But when one tries, Chair, to answer this question, is that as part of the work that we do through research, we do focus on those diminished heritages. Some of these reports that research produces, for instance, the issues of indigenous languages, those that are not necessarily recognized as officials, like isiHlubi, isiPhondo. It's a way of trying to resuscitate them. It's a way of, bringing them to another level in terms of the consciousness of the people. Some we deal with them in different ways through complaints. I can give a specific reason, justification of one of the interventions we've made through the in Sesotho in Motu in KwaZulu Natal. Yes, in Motu. Yes, they actually complained to us at some stage to say they feel their language is diminishing because they are finding themselves staying in KwaZulu Natal, but they are not allowed to use that language because isiZulu is dominating in the area. So we had to try and intervene in terms of complaints, and because they were, having a challenge in schools and so on and so forth. So we had to engage the relevant stakeholders to assist them so that in one way or the other they can be accommodated, and we ended up, producing recommendations to that effect to the provincial government to assist them. So this is one way of trying to deal with such issues when it comes to issues of language. But overall, this report that we are saying we are going to produce in February next year on language will actually attempt to address some of the concerns that we are raising, including the diminished languages and those that are official, because we are going to, and tentatively, I can say that we are going to a direction where we want to push for some languages to be recognized as officials in provinces, not necessarily all at national. If a language is dominant in a particular province, we want the legislatures to help elevate those languages to provincial official languages. And that is one way of trying to address the issue of the diminishing languages. And, for instance, if you go to Eastern Cape, isiPhondo, isiXhosa, isiPhondo is like marginal, it's important. Thank you so much, Honorable. So you find that those, and we are happy, the Department of Basic Education has started doing that. One way is to make these languages to be used in schools, write exams, and so on and so forth, because we are realizing that our children may be failing a lot because of the language barrier, not that they don't know. And it is upon us to begin to engage on that. And we are saying this report is very critical for this committee to look at it very closely when we table it in February, so that at least we can together see how we can best deal with those issues. So these are some of the approaches we use to elevate these languages through these research projects and complaints that comes to us and so on, but also by popularizing the equal use of all these languages. This report that we are saying, the departments should be the first to use all these official languages in all service delivery points, municipalities, everywhere. We must be able to see all these languages. You must have a choice.
like you do have a choice when you go to the bank. But if you go to an area and you find that you only have English and Afrikaans, for instance, and Afrikaans actually, I always make a serious argument that we should learn from how they developed that language for us to be able to develop other languages that are not at par with English and Afrikaans. They to put a lot of resources, put a lot of efforts to develop those languages, and we can use that as a model to develop other diminished languages, but also the others that are not necessarily being used at a level that we would expect them to be used in all of our operations in the country. So, Chair, I think that is the attempt I would do in that question, but I know it is a very mandatory question that we may have to explore it even deeper going forward, because it is within our mandate to say how do we protect and promote these diminished and diminishing heritages. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. The Honorable Hadebe raised an issue of whether or not experts exist in municipalities to assist when it comes to bylaws, who are expert in culture, language, and religion, and so forth. And we have not raised that question, but it's a very important question with municipalities. Our responsibility is to develop a database of experts in cultural, religious, and linguistic areas. It will be important that, having identified those, we are able to inform the municipalities that in your area, if you seek advice on matters of language, of culture, of religion, these are the individuals that are available in your area. So we think that will help us going forward. The issue of enforcement is something that is new, because it's one thing to have regulations, to have laws, but if you cannot enforce them, it's as good as they don't exist. And of course, not only enforcing, there must be a deterrent. If you don't do, so what? These are elements of ensuring a peaceful, coherent communities, so that they respect each other and live side by side by side. So we will also talk to the municipalities. What are the forms of enforcement that may be introduced to assist in this regard? There is an issue about the vehicle which has been stolen, and Honorable Spies raised that matter. Can the CFO please respond to that?
Chair, thank you. The book value of the vehicle at February was 522,000. The insurance had access on it of 57,000, meaning they paid cash on 522 was the book value. 57 was the access to the insurance, and 515 was cash that was paid into the bank account, leaving us with a loss of 7,000 rand on the vehicle. The vehicle was not in any of the staff members. There was no one that used the vehicle at that point in time, so there's no one that can be charged with negligence for the vehicle. The vehicle was parked in its normal place here at the premises in the underground parking, and thieves came in, accessed the park, and took our vehicle and vehicles of Nahabo, who is also another tenant in the park. So they came and they took those vehicles illegally and by theft. There's no other way to put it. So the vehicle was not in the possession of any of our staff members, so we cannot hold any member responsible.
Thank you so much.
Add that question so that we don't go back. Just to satisfy the members, the vehicle was stolen while we were here working. At 10 o'clock, I think around 9:10. Actually, we were alerted by tracker while we were working that, are you the ones who are driving in Soweto? And we said, no, we have all the keys here. And we went to the parking, we found nothing. That's how the vehicle was stolen and eventually recovered within 2 hours by the tracker, but everything inside was already stripped, everything. It was very badly. So it was, and yeah, we said to the landlord, really, if you look at the security when you were coming in, and if we go to where the vehicle was parked, I think level 3 up or 4, managing to come down and still go through and go out 2 vehicles in an hour and hours. We thought maybe it was a suspicion of inside job. But when they tracked even the access cards there, apparently the IDs that swiped in there, seemingly fake IDs and stuff. So that's how criminality has penetrated us. Chair, thank you.
Thank you so much. The other issue raised by Honorable Spies has to do with the fact that CRL is not popularly known out there. And that there are many people, if you ask who is CRL or what is CRL, no, people don't know. I think we are trying everything in the book to make sure that we are known. First is that our collaboration with SABC in terms of regional radios and community radios, to be able to use those as focal points of trying to make sure that we popularize the CRL. We have just concluded a memorandum of understanding. The issue is about programs. It is not so much about they are present whenever we have presentations, wherever we go, they support us. But what is important are the programs that we need to introduce so that individuals, wherever they are, they can watch on matters of culture, matters of religion and language. So that it's not so much about the name, it's that the name must be associated with what it seeks to achieve and help communities really become who they're supposed to be. So we will try our utmost to do that, Honorable Member. The suppression of Witchcraft Act, it's under review. The Law Reform Commission is busy with it, and we are making inputs into it. The issue is the difference between non-natural and supernatural act. What is wrong is also the use of labels. The word witch is a historical word. I mean, if you go, you read Macbeth, you sorcery, you hear that. In other words, it's not something that needs to be written home about, you see. Because they're talking about the spirit, not the bad act. But when you use the word witch in a negative way, associated with a lack of understanding of the language itself, that you become, the word itself becomes negative. So we are trying to use something in between. That what is wrong is the ability to use, or the claim of the ability to use the non-natural, supernatural powers, with the consequence of wanting to harm somebody. And what happens is the psychological effect that arises of that, fear, psychologically, and many other things. So we're dealing with that aspect of it. So we hope that when it comes to Parliament, you'll be able to look at it and see how best to deal with that. Yeah. The issue of immigration and the possibility of a common Africa lingua franca it's a matter I think we need to be looking at. And some were proposing that we also adopt Kiswahili as a common African language whenever you go. I'm told the Chinese language, what do you call it now? Mandarin? is being taught in our country. But if it's been taught, why can't we taught Kiswahili so that we gravitate into becoming Kiswahili becoming a language of Africa? So those are the things that the initiatives that do not only require the Commission, but they require also the political will of our leaders to say, what is it that we can use together to achieve this objective? And we're also looking into something, but very related, is that the Commission, it's about community rights. And this community right is segmented into three. It's cultural, religious, and linguistic. Now, when we say community, are we referring to the rural areas? People are there, Amakaya, Ezelalin. Who is this community? Can we say political organizations are also communities? So would this affect the way that community interact in Parliament so that the Act empowers CRL to also say a word in terms of that community in Parliament? What you call a business community, academic community. Is that the understanding? So we have begun an investigation to try to make this a delineation so that there's a broader understanding of what community is all about. Not restrictive in the manner most of the time we do. Okay. So the issue coming from Honorable Chava regarding Zangoma. This is it's a matter that we have no authority about. It's a spiritual matter. If we agree that religion is allowed, is as for freedom equally, this one also is allowed because it's a matter of spirituality. So we can't control spirituality of people. So the Constitution allows the freedom to exercise one's spirituality. I think that will be my last no. Okay. I think there's the issue from Honorable Dereko regarding what we need to be doing regarding the practices of initiation. You know, the challenge we have is that we promote cultures, but we must make a distinction between harmful and unharmful cultural practices. Because if we don't do that, we then stand accused of allowing something to undermine the very noble practice of culture. Like initiation is a noble practice which has been there over years. Now, the encroachment of the illegal things that are taking place, I remember heading to defend, I think it was in the UN, the committee that came. They said this is a harmful practice. But what you say, it's not a harmful practice. But the more it persists, it would appear as if it's a harmful practice. So the support we are giving to our traditional leaders is to support the new act, the Customary Initiation Act, so that we apply it and make sure that we implement it to obviate the unintended consequences that are as a result of many young people who die in our schools. So this is really our commitment, and our support is very invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable members, it looks like I only have one hand. Oh, I thought you, Honorable Chava, Honorable Huneveld, Honorable Honorable Msima. I don't know,
You must write a paper next to
it's because we discussed Amatwati. So I'm sure we are beginning to relate. Honorable Braamfontein.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the CRL Commission. I have a follow-up to the CRL Commission because I can see the way they respond about the church tenders. They are relying to the police. While here in South Africa, we have lawlessness, if I can say. We have lawlessness because the parent of those children, they are crying to say, the police, they take bribes to those drug dealers. That is why I'm saying, which means we have lawlessness in South Africa. Why can't, because if you can see a commissioner, all these 10, they are here where you are residing as a nationally CRL commission in Gauteng. You cannot find it in Ward 6 where I come from in KZN. There is no tent that is making noisy as if Jesus is here between them now. No. Tina, we have indigenous churches in where we come from, in rural areas. Many, but indigenous churches who have their churches, not tent, not putting tent where there is a space. I want to say to the commissioner, why can't you work with the office of the safety of the police MEC? Because in that office there is a brigade, so-called GBV and CPF brigade. That brigade is the one that can help you to get the true reflection of the crime and criminals that are happening within the community. Because they are within us. You see me now, I was an MP deployed in Midrand. When I'm doing some programs, I call them to come. Because they will hear to the community what is happening within. And then they will go there and they will see that thing because they don't have power, because they are not police. I think even yourself, I don't know whether I will be having a power, but you'll get the true reflection to them. Because they are within the community, they know everything. But even even yamapolisa ime iphumi ngabophanga mntu. Wabona nje la eMidrand opposite nemadonut. Ama-drugs athengiswa lapha athengiswa daylight. Because umfana owasekhaya oyengivashela uSiphiwe wafike wama lapho elindebeni banizomkholektha ngomthatha ngoba akazi ngihlala khona. They came to him, they said, which stuff you want? Which stuff you want? How much you have? Eh? Which means they are selling in daylight. I go to the Midrand police station, I ask them, police, why can't you arrest these people? They said, we go there every day, Mama, we didn't find it, anything that is tangible. But we know, and we hear from other people, it's not you alone who came to us. But we go there to try to arrest them, but we found nothing. I said, okay, it's fine, but there is that element of bribing. That I cannot guarantee that is true. They did not find anything. Because there is this element of bribing in South Africa. And people crying to say, hey, they are not, they are getting peanuts when they are getting paid in end of the month. But you see, sometimes when you get paid, you must, your things, they must be, again, if uhola imali engango 500, izinkinga zakho mazilingane lo 500 owolayo. So that you won't go getting big bribe by criminals. If they are getting peanuts from our government, their problem, they must be that under that peanut. so that they won't get it. No, I cannot allow this. It must happening in our country because they are saying they are getting peanuts. How much did they want to get? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, it's also, again, on the language, and to promote it, I just want to make a suggestion to the CRL. If we promote a language and we look at the history of the language, then you know that people get proud of their language, and that will assist also in developing a language. I am Afrikaans, and I'm proud to be Afrikaans, but I know my history of Afrikaans. I know that Afrikaans has included Bantu languages as well. Kudu, for example, is a Khoisan word. It's not an Afrikaans word. It was adopted by Afrikaans. So if you know the history of your language, you can be proud on it. I unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, unfortunately am Afrikaner and speak Afrikaans. So, but I don't know anything about other languages. I don't know the history of other languages. So, if we can understand one another's language and the history of it, then we also can have a better respect in terms of different languages. Chairperson, that's my closing remarks.
Honorable Msimang.
Thank you, Chair. Not far from from what Mr. Groenewald is saying, but maybe safe to say, okay. Maybe let me start by saying to the commissioners, you are not bad as CRL. And I think it will be important that, colleagues, we say, let's build on top of what you have already established. Of course, there are, your report will always have, places where we can punch holes. But we are saying you are not bad, given the fact that we are coming from other entities of the department and looking at the things that are currently happening. I can safely say you are not bad, but of course we can't thank a fish for swimming. All we can say is that keep up the good work from where you are. Let's not go down, but let's rather try and make sure that we improve from where you are. The last comment that I want to make, Chair, you always say on follow-ups you must just be very short and brief, is that I refuse, ma'am, to take your advice that says for us to be able to develop a language or make these languages equal, we need resources. Because then if it's us sitting here, because I believe we're in authority, there is a role that you are supposed to play according to the prescript of what you are supposed to do, and there's a role that we are supposed to. So it can't be us sitting here that says, no, then there's a lot that we need to do in order to develop this up until they are equal. Then we must close shops and go home. Because then there is nothing that we are, for as long as we're saying we can't do it because we don't have, it can't be. All we're supposed to be saying is to say, this, I know that it's not your competence as commissioners to develop, but your competence is to promote what has already been there. But I'm saying I refuse, because you see, the issue here is that as members of parliament who are representing interest of different constituencies, I fully understand the mandate that Mr. Groenewald is here representing as a member of parliament, but also I have a particular mandate that I must represent from the community that elected me to be here. Reality is, the issue of languages not being equal is not something that started now that there is this democratic government. In 1652, when our friends arrived in South Africa, on the 6th of April, our problems start. And they said they've discovered South Africa. The question is, you can't discover something already there are people living on it. Because there are already people living. But part of the things which makes it very interesting is that they sat down and crafted strategies as to say, how are we going to dominate those people that are living there, that they claim to have discovered? Because when you discover, it means you have discovered, including the human beings that were living in that particular, So I'm saying, colleagues, in as much as this is not your competence, but maybe it's something that we need to think about, and I'm going to take this up, because it always bothers me as to say, at what point are we going to try and make, because it's unjust that you are saying there is a language that has been developed, because it did not wake up and being developed. There is action that was put, a concerted program that was put in order to make sure that Afrikaans and English are where they are. And that is, as this government, we have a responsibility to put those concerted programs in order to make sure that we also lift up Isivenda, lift up all these other languages to be equal to Afrikaans and English. So I'm saying, colleagues, maybe you don't have to answer on this, but it's something that we need to think about, as to say, we have a responsibility using the powers that who are given by people that voted. For instance, I'm a member of the ANC. I'm deployed by the ANC here, so I can't shy away. That no, because of what it can't be. We've got to try, and because people lose interest in voting for this government, precisely because we are not doing what they sent us to do. It's injustice that you can say to me, there are two languages that are more developed than the others. Surely there must be a concerted effort that must be put in order to make sure that these languages are also equal to these two languages, because they were not automatically developed to that level. So I'm saying, colleagues, maybe for now, let's stop it here so that we were able to, to move out of this building while we are still able to talk to each other. Thank you.
What do you want? You want to follow up?
No. Thank you, Chair. I won't respond to what my colleague is saying, because then we won't walk out yet.
Why should we allow responses? They are the ones who must respond.
I just quickly want to add something, Chair.
Add something, okay.
In terms of developing of languages, we have a lot of good educational institutions that can assist in developing languages. We must start that dialogue to see how we can do it. Thank you, Jay.
The assumption is that we agree that our languages are not developed. In fact, even the concept of saying develop our languages before they can be used, and the issue of history. There's no language that has no history. So one would want us to move away from that. Let's say, let's have that strategy. In fact, the first culprits here are us who are not speaking our languages. Because there's nothing that stops us, from speaking our language. And I think we agree. The temptation when you are in Parliament, you want to be heard by the people that are sitting around the table. And we forget that there are millions of people who we should be speaking to. So the question of strategy as to how can we develop our languages, how can we approach the issue of different languages, especially as public representatives and government. I'm sure we can learn a lot even from other countries. China, it's a very good example. The president speaks his own language and somebody interprets. So hence I'm saying it's far bigger than, in fact it's not a commission issue. It's our issue. It's a problem.
Members, we as a commission felt really honored, privileged, not only to talk to you through the medium of virtual means, but to talk to you directly. And this, I think, something has heightened and enhanced our conversation. Your comments were not criticisms, were constructive proposals, enabling us to do our work as effectively as possible in the best interest of this nation. So hence you are here. So we are really happy, Chair. And we take the inputs that have been given to us, because they also sharpen our understanding of our mandate, and they deepen also our analysis and help us in coming up with strategies, so that in future when we meet again, and you'll see that we were here, we have moved up to the different level. And this is really an act of appreciation, Chairperson, to say above all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think even from our side, compared to yesterday, somebody was giving me a message to say, you seem to be very serious today. I don't know what it means, but we are relaxed. I think that might be the picture. The clean audit, we should all be excited about it. And I think one of the members commented about it to say maintain that. So that's what caused us to relax a bit. Then the focus on the issue of historical irregularities and whatever. We have heard the message. I think we are saying continue to do that good work. Now specifically on the issue of culture, as you opened, Chairperson, you talked about National Indawa on initiation before the end of this month. Obviously, as a committee, would be very interested in that. There was, after the visit in the Eastern Cape, we gave some instruction to the Oversight Committee, National Initiation Oversight Committee, building up towards this coming season. So we would also be quite interested in seeing that happening. The last point would be this development of strategy on the issue of language. When I say developing strategy, I don't know who will facilitate that, who can facilitate it to a point where we are able to say, as South Africans, many, let's not be divided by the issue of language. Instead, it should help us to do more. I think generally those, otherwise we are happy with the work that is being done. Thank you very much. Oh. It's in November. No, whatever communication, the idea itself is what we appreciate, that there will be something that can bring together people to say, talk about this thing of initiation. In fact, every time we interact with the media, they are always asking us, why are you allowing your children to die? Why are you? In fact, they stop short of saying, why are you killing your children? And that narrative is very difficult when you must engage with it. Otherwise, thank you very much. The session is adjourned. Thank you. Honorable members a request for a picture next to here.